bit. The main roof that I have really only ever heard problems about is the shakes. Asphalt's pretty good, steel obviously is really good. The construction of the roof is really important too though. So if you have got, I'm thinking of some homes where you've got a flat roof and it's got a dormer coming out of the front and you've got eaves overhanging on the dormer, sometimes you'll get debris built up on a great metal roof on either side of that dormer, so all of a sudden you've got flames underneath the eaves of that upper section. Some of those things, they just tend to like eddy material back into them. I've seen it several times, and including my next door neighbor's house, which is brand new. It's all within the last year or so. It's had the opportunity to build up material there, and it's there. So take a look at all those kind of nooks and crannies in your roof, and where is it going to burn up to? Not only is it under the eave, it's up against a very small wall of your house in that dormer. So yeah, again, just kind of walk around your home with a fresh pair of eyes every few months and think about, well, what's going on here? And I really, a lot of this stuff doesn't need to be done in the wintertime. If you want to have firewood near your front door so that you can heat your house in the wintertime, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But you don't want to keep that firewood stored there by now. That should all be gone. That should all be away from the house in a woodshed somewhere under a tarp. So again, when I come out to a home or a barn or any structure at all, I kind of walk these concentric rings. That red one in the center is a 5-foot radius around the home. And I am picking apart the home. What's behind that vent? Does it have the proper screening behind it? Are there cracks in the siding? Is there rotten cracks in the wood decking? Little things where a spark is going to land and become a problem. So I'll do that, and I really nitpick the heck out of that house from that 5-foot range. And then I stand back a little bit and I do the same thing to the roof from whatever angle I can see it from. A lot of homes in San Juan County, it seems like they have open eaves, so there's often no venting underneath there at all, which is great. But if you have a vent at all, and particularly if it's an older home, if it's a newer home, it's probably good to go. Probably 3/4 of the homes I've been to so far, their vents are great. But if it's wider than 1/8 inch hardware cloth, that woven wire stuff behind the vent, you probably want to take a trip to the hardware store and for $10 probably buy all the hardware cloth that'll do every building on your place. So pretty easy, and a staple gun. That should do it from inside. The next one is that orange line, which is about 30 feet out from the main structure. And I take issue with this image a little bit, actually, because if that garage catches fire, what's going to happen to that house? That garage is like 5 or 10 feet out. It's definitely going to burn the other house down. So that red line should extend also along here too. And that orange one should go out beyond where this 100-foot line is. Again, buildings are fuel. Buildings are the fuel, really. The only thing I can think about, which is wisely outside of the lines here, that's almost the worst fuel, is automobiles. I don't know if you've ever been up on a car that's burned to the ground before, up close, but I have, and the wheels melted off. Not the tires, the molten steel of the wheels came off. They're very, very hot. So you might think about, whether or not you have a vehicle or a boat right up near your important structures, particularly if you are going to leave, that they be out of that area. So this is an example of kind of the chaparral-esque like materials that you want to avoid having in your landscape as well. This is actually a photograph I saw online and I selected because I believe it's the same species of willow tree that we have growing in the county, which you can see this old dead stump or log here. These are actually branches of that log from when it fell down. The willow tree species we have here, when they get up to a certain size, they almost purposely decay their trunk apart so that they can fall down and then reroot and become 10 new trees. That happens really commonly around here, but that's a fair amount of fuel I would want to have out in my back 40, not in my front yard. Be mindful of those corners of your house that you never really, I never walk around the north side of the house there because there's no walkway and it's got a slope on the back side of it and just kind of, out of sight, out of mind. Well, if you're down slope and that's the side it's on, that's where debris might come from above and roll down the hill. Yeah?
What does back 40 mean?
Oh, it's just the back 40 acres. Just
40
old
acres.
farming term. From old Western movies, I guess. This is an example of a ladder fuel. So this could start out as a grass fire and quickly become a canopy fire. You want to be taking the rungs out of this ladder at your own home. And this is an example right here. If you've got brush underneath a tree that you really want to keep there, there's nothing wrong with that. Make sure there's no material above that within 3 times the height of what it is that you're leaving behind. When I'm dealing with brush, like say these 2 guys right here, what I'll often do is take a pair of loppers, which you can do like 90% of the work I'm talking about with as far as landscape, you want a pair of loppers for. It's a fantastic tool for that material. But I will do what's called lifting the canopy. And you can kind of see this tree here has already been done. These branches have been made bare here. So there's no fuel for this thing for these lower probably 4 feet. Had I just cut this thing down, or if I was to cut these things down, they're going to grow right up from the ground again, full on like a bush, where they can be almost more tree-like and have that fuel up higher off the ground. So that's doing 2 things. It's taking the bottom rung out of your ladder, and it's encouraging new growth up high, up off the ground. And that's going to last longer because the tree is still able to grow, or the bush. But it's going to want to do, trees do something called apical dominance, all plants do, where the apex buds on all the branches, the outermost one, wants to do all the growing. As a fruit tree pruner, if you prune those things off for your fruit trees, you're going to get growth at the next lowest bud. If you cut it down at the ground and it's a bush, which is used to being burned or grazed by elk or run over or something like that, they have an automatic response to grow like nuts that first year coming out. And you'll have almost the exact same bush in a year's time that you just cut down, minus all the old dead material at least. But it doesn't feel very heartening when all your work you just did is gone in a year. So bring the canopy up and it helps quite a bit. And yeah, my rule with using loppers is if it will fit in a pair of loppers and I can reach it from a pair of with a pair of loppers, it's probably a good idea to take it out or at least assess it really well. So meaning if it'll fit in there, it's probably small diameter, so it's kind of a light flashy fuel. Big timber, unless it's rotten, it hasn't got a lot of thermal mass to it. It doesn't ignite very well. So it's generally good to leave around so long as there's not a bunch of brush and sticks that are going to eventually ignite it. So that's where the loppers are great in measuring diameter, but also in height. If I can't reach it, then it's probably high enough off the ground that I don't need to worry about it. I have several of the biggest pine trees on Lopez Island all around my house that I took a cord of old dead material out of this last January and February. And beyond that, there's still quite a bit more up above that I probably will eventually get up there and do more. That's something you'd want to hire an arborist for. But there's a frightening amount of debris in some of these trees, and that is the kind of thing that could potentially light from an ember and torch a tree from a distance. So take a look at it and be fire in your mind. The beautiful thing about this is that it's a raw element of nature. It's not anybody's funny ideas, it's not a plan, it's not anything other than what does fire do? And this is an illustration of one of the things fire does. It likes to climb. So, okay, fire burns up. What can I do to remove those rungs of the fire? And then, yeah, 6 foot minimum. Again, I like to go as high as I can reach with a pair of loppers. 7 or 8 feet I think is even better. And you might as well get it out of your hair so that you're not, knocking yourself in the head when you go buying a lawnmower or something. So I like just a little bit higher up. Another shot, again, of a ladder fuel happening. That's the same shot we saw earlier. This is how I like to dispose of my fuel if I don't have something productive to do with it, mulch my garden or turn it into wood chips or something like that. And that's the time of year I like to do it. Ain't nothing gonna burn when there's snow on the ground like that. It doesn't need to have snow on the ground, but the fire departments are pretty good about letting everybody know when it's safe to do burn piles around here. If you let them know you're gonna do one, get your permits and all that, it's a pretty safe bet you can do burn piles really safely like 2/3 of the year around here. That doesn't mean you can't make them today. You might go out with your pair of pruners and your pair of loppers and spend a half an hour every evening just ticking away at it, and then building a pile that's out 30 feet, 100 feet from any structures that you're worried about. By the time fall comes and it gets really wet, you've got an old cardboard box thrown over it to keep it dry, and then when the day comes, you can burn in the middle. I've burned in blizzards, I swear to God. I've had burn piles going in really, really intense weather. They don't care. They're generating their own heat so long as it's nice and dry in there. So save those old torn up tarps that you got and that last bit of visqueen plastic from the garden that you removed. Junk basically, but it's going to shed water. Build a pile, a small one, like under 4 feet in diameter, 4 feet high. Cover it over, toss a couple more logs on there so it stays put until the wet season comes. And by the time that comes, you'll be good to go. You'll have a really easy to light fire, and get the marshmallows out and enjoy your winter. It's like one of those fun chores to do outdoors in the wintertime, is to stand around the fire. And I will go. There's a whole workshop involved in building burn piles that are just super nice. I'm happy to talk about that with you if you have any questions and you want me to come out to your place. Again, there's a picture of a vehicle fire. I mean, whatever this is, it's oozing off the car, like it's melting the car right here. They are really intense and hot. So keep it in the garage or keep it fire safe, because you don't want that happening near your home. Blackberry brambles, dry leaves, your barbecue covers, propane tanks. Barbecues I've seen so many times, they're almost always pushed up against the house, and there's almost always a half a bag of bone dry leaves behind them underneath a propane tank, wrapped in vinyl. So think about whether or not that's acceptable in the summertime near your house. And hopefully you've got your barbecue cover off in the summertime and it's off to the far side of the deck where it's not near your home, and you're using it like at least every week, because that's what we should do in the summertime. But those little propane tanks aren't quite so safe as the big ones that are the size of these tables. Those things I have learned recently tend to not explode, thankfully, but the hose that comes out of them will burn out, and a pressure release valve lets all the propane out in a fountain, more like, instead of an explosion. The ones for barbecues aren't quite so friendly. These I've seen quite a bit. Like, I want to say a third of the homes I've been to have got these little plant fiber, coir, or whatever, planters hanging off of the walls of their house or out on the edge of their deck railing. In the summertime, and of a third of the homes that I've seen, half of them look just like this. They're bone dry, they're dead, they've got some old, dead vegetation in them, and if you're going to keep them watered, then that's one thing, but if you're like me, they're not going to be watered so good all the time. This is an old rotten deck right here, and these little cracks are what I was talking about earlier. Rotten wood is another thing that I look for when I'm trying to build a campfire to get something that'll smolder well. It doesn't flame up necessarily, but you can get an ember down inside of the end of this log here, and it'll start to smolder and it'll burn like a cigarette towards your house for 2 days maybe, and eventually make it there. And you might have decided to get the heck out of Dodge already because you're wise about that, but your deck might be a liability. So that's one thing that you want to think about. And then that far side there, cushions on your deck furniture. Again, right up next to the house. Maybe get furniture that's comfortable because of other reasons. I think they make fire retardant cushions for that sort of thing now as well, because it's been such a common thing to burn down homes in California and such. And then firewood. It's in the name. Firewood. Don't have that in the summertime next to your house. Invariably, there's a bunch of sawdust and a mouse nest and spider webs and all kinds of other tinder in there just waiting to catch an ember. Yeah?
If your deck's in good condition, but it still forms a corner up against the house, is that going to trap and be a problem?
That can be that interface where decking and housing kind of meet. You'll often get debris tucked into there, and that can be where you get that smoldering effect, and oftentimes it'll happen up underneath the siding of your house and can burn up inside of the wall of the house and you don't notice it until you see smoke coming out of the top of the wall.
So how do you mitigate that?
You might take your deck back a little bit. You might take a skill saw and just run, an inch of it off of the end there. It would depend on every situation, how that deck is built, but maybe create a little gap there. That'd be the quick and dirty way I would do it, at least. Evaluate whether or not the deck needs to be replaced, and if so, do that. It sounds like yours is in pretty good shape. But yeah, just do what you can to create a gap so that smoldering isn't going to continue on. So yeah.
Do you happen to know if there's fire retardant deck sealant or something?
I have heard of fire retardant roofing sealant for cedar shake homes. My understanding is it needs to be reapplied like every year. And I don't know if that would work for a deck or not. I've never heard of it for a deck. That's not true. I have heard of fire-resistant paint being used. I'm not sure that it does what I'm not sure that that's the problem. I guess that's a better way to say it. If you've got good wood, it's probably not that much of it a risk anyway. If you've got old rotten wood, it's probably going to burn regardless. So even just switching out, that last photograph I showed, pull up a half dozen of those boards and put some new ones in there. It's not too hard to do. This is just an example of doing everything wrong. This is actually one of those homes that they have in a laboratory somewhere that they built. This isn't somebody's actual home, but you can see here, like, we've got the fuse, unbroken fuel from out here right up to the side of the house. Some yahoo put their barbecue right up against their trellis that had dry vines growing on it. This is just asking to burn. This is a Darwin Award photograph. So this is something that you want to avoid. It's a vinyl-sided house, which in and of itself I don't think is that bad, but radiant heat will melt that stuff right off of your house. It just goes soft and just sloughs down. And then you have a bunch of petroleum product at the base of your home that if you do have a fuse make it to the bottom of that, then it's got a fuel source. I'm sure that stuff's probably loaded with all kinds of fire retardant too, but it's still going to burn under the right conditions. Same thing with vinyl gutters. Those gutters will, if they get a fire inside of them, I think I might actually have another shot. Yeah, right here. See this falling down right here is a vinyl gutter, and this is all ignited with that machine that throws sparks at it. There was some debris in this gutter. The gutter heated up, melted off, and then all of a sudden it's in a puddle at the bottom of the wall. So I'm not saying that vinyl gutters should be replaced, but you might think about getting those pretty cool covers that they make. I've seen at least a dozen different brands now where it's a screen that goes over the top of the gutter, the leaves fall over the top, and the water falls in. It's worth doing just so you don't have to clean your gutters anymore. They work pretty slick, and I've only heard good things about them from people who have them. Yeah?
How do you rate T111 for relative fire safety?
It's plywood. I imagine it's probably just like any other wood. Yeah, it's just painted plywood. So I don't think it's going to be that bad, though. As far as for radiant heat, it shouldn't be that bad. As far as direct flame, it's probably going to be like any other wood. Yeah. Somebody have their hands up back here? So 80% of home ignitions have something to do with the roof. So take that really seriously. The roof includes your gutters. It includes the vents that go up into the roof. It includes what kind of shingling you have, or if it's metal. It includes those eaves that come over and maybe are above some debris. So there's a lot of little places where the roof, for whatever, is just the sweet spot for fire to take hold. So really give a hard look at that. It's 4/5 of the game. See if I'm missing anything there. Yeah, just any of those things that have to do with a roof, really put a magnifying glass up to it and make sure your roof is in good repair and fire safe. Not like this though.
Oh no.
Yeah, this is Marin County, I suppose. I think back to when I used to be a wildland firefighter and all the Nomex I had to wear in order to do anything at all. And this guy has got some shorts and a fanny pack on. So This is not how you want to go about defending your home at all. And you don't want to be doing it in real time when the fire is at your doorstep. You want to have done it months ago. And you want to have a plan for what hotel you're going to stay in when the time comes, or what family you're going to stay with if you have to. This guy is not likely to do a whole lot of good for his home, watering down the asphalt shingles that probably aren't going to burn anyway. So if you are going to think about defending your own home, you had better take it damn seriously today and assess what kind of shape you're in, research what it's actually going to take, whether or not you're even going to be home, etc., etc., etc. It's very hard to make all those things line up. I have made it line up before at a friend's house, and I tell you, like, a team of us took a week off of work to make it happen. It is not easily done. And yeah, do all this other stuff I've been telling you about beforehand, which you're going to have to do anyway if that's the case, and be good to go. I like the idea of having a couple of Rainbird sprinklers strategically located that I can turn a faucet and make sure my doors and windows are closed and go see family, and then breathe easily because I'm not in the smoke and I'm not worried about my house burning down. So driveways, you need to leave. Emergency personnel might need to come. So think about whether or not you want to meet that engine head on your way out your driveway, and whether or not there's a turnout for them so that they can get around you. Think about what kind of panic you might be in. Think about whatever kind of condition everybody else's mental state might be in. And think about their safety before anything else, because that's all they care about. They are not going to send people into a home where people have not done their due diligence to keep it fire safe and risk people's lives to save your structure that you didn't put the forethought into yourself. So do not do that and ask that of your fire personnel here on the island. It's not fair, and your building is probably insured. You know, they have no problem with just letting that do what's going to happen if the work has not been done. If the work has been done, and I'm not saying open it up like this, but this is a good example of a driveway that I would feel comfortable with going up with any vehicle or number of vehicles. I might, in fact, park my crew right here when things get really hairy because I know they're going to be safe there. So make things attractive to EMS. Is this going to be a great place for me to stage an engine or two or some personnel, and they're going to be able to get water, and I'm not going to have to worry about them. This sign here on the right is probably not something that I'm going to think about going up if I'm driving an engine. Private driveway, no turnaround. I don't want to hear no turnaround, so produce some turnarounds. These other signs on the left, I just happened to, they say wildfire evacuation route. Excuse me. And I don't know if those are appropriate around here or not, but in certain parts of the world, they're exactly the right thing that you want to see, along with your tsunami evacuation route sort of thing, when all of a sudden you're behind the wheel of a car with your kids in the back seat and you're worried about getting out of there. You want nice, clear signage. The thing with the human brain is when we get panicked, we cannot think with novel thoughts.